What's going on, everybody? It's KRYPTONIAN saying here, bringing you guys another review for Chainsaw Man chapter 123. And Fujimoto continues to turn Asa Mitaka from a character I was feeling a little bit when we first got introduced to her to making her a character I'm actually feeling a lot of sympathy for and rooting for at this point in the story, because in this chapter we got more of Asa Mitaka's very messed up backstory, and this extra bit of information is starting to explain a lot of the subtle things we've seen about Mitaka's character in the manga up until this point, as well as a continuing theme with her character that very well might be very key to her character in the future. On top of that, Fujimoto trolled us once again by subverting our expectations with this new devil. So with my initial thoughts out of the way, let's back things up and let's get into the recap itself. So the chapter opens up with a pretty gruesome panel where the devil literally realizes it doesn't have a head right now, and so it just snaps the neck of this poor woman and rips it off cleanly so she can attach it to her neck, and then suddenly it becomes self-aware of the fact that it's walking around nude and proceeds to put on an assortment of clothes in order to make a chef outfit. And we learn that the devil's name is not the Death Devil like we thought last week, but instead it is the Falling Devil, which if you predicted this was not the Death Devil, congratulations, you are a great prognosticator, which really isn't a shock because you guys are really that observant when it comes to Chainsaw Man. The Falling Devil's powers are a bit scary when you look at them, and Yoru knows this, which is why she's trying to talk some sense into Mitaka. But unlike Yoru, Mitaka is a human with very human emotions that leave her subject to the powers of the Falling Devil, which we'll get into in a moment. Essentially, the Falling Devil's powers are able to cause negative emotions to stir up inside of Mitaka, and those emotions manifest in the form of a flashback for Asa Mitaka set in the time after her parents died. Mitaka is at the orphanage with the other children who lost their parents to devils, and she's shown reading a book with her cat perched on her shoulders. One of the women who works at the orphanage, who Mitaka calls ma'am out of respect, approaches Mitaka and tells her that it's for the better that she takes her cat to stay with one of her friends who adores cats. However, this cat is drawn in the most self-aware fashion ever that should be the grounds for a new meme being made for Chainsaw Man, because it's looking at this woman like it knows that it's part of the Chainsaw Man series and it's part of a flashback, and it suddenly realized that it's about to find out that the expression "cats have 9 lives" is actually true. We get our first sign that something's up with this woman when she begins changing her reasons for why she wants Mitaka to give up the cat. First, she says that one of the kids is allergic to the cat, but then she tries to say Mitaka is closer to the cat than she is with any humans, and that she needs real human companionship and not that of an animal. However, Mitaka initially isn't having any of this, which leads to a woman trying another tactic, which is the appeal to pity, by telling Mitaka that all the other kids and herself, they lost their families to devils, and she says that all the other kids, they're healing as a family by playing together, but the cat is the only cat in the orphanage. Once again, this cat goes from looking at the woman as she's speaking to Mitaka to turning its head over to Mitaka like he's trying to tell her, you better not believe any of this nonsense because I've seen enough anime to know how this ends. It's then that we learn that Mitaka's cat is called Cambron, but that's when we get the dark plot twist. Cambron isn't going to be going to a loving home. Instead, it gets tossed to the bottom of the river, and when Mitaka asks the woman what happened to her cat, she's told it's not fair that all the other kids, they lost their family members, but you still had a family member in Cranbomb. Now, to show you how messed up Fujimoto is in the head, which this is really messed up, but it's so messed up that it's brilliant. This looks like the exact same cat that Asa Mitaka saved when her mother died, which means she's lost yet another connection to her mother here, which appears to be a continuing trend with Mitaka. She lost the uniform that her mother brought forward for a weapon. She lost her mother's cell phone, and in this flashback, she's lost the cat that she saved when her mother died. Mitaka's character and the words loss and sacrifice, they seem to be going hand in hand with her character right now, which makes me wonder where the trajectory for Mitaka's character is going to go, because I think I got a good idea of how Fujimoto is going to both make Mitaka a sympathetic character as well as a tragic character. And I think we're seeing the seeds of this being sold right now. That's when we also get another big change that occurs. Mitaka is shown with her eyes closed and appears to be hanging upside down, waiting for a nasty fall. Around her, people are being lifted in the air and then dropping down into a portal that looks like it's a portal to hell, which makes a lot of sense. We're dealing with the primal devil here, and the falling devil explains what's going on. The lower that the heart sinks, the higher that the body falls, and she's basically feasting on the trauma of the past and while all this is happening, Yoru's trying to break through to Mitaka telling her not to be afraid. Now, I'm gonna say this right now. I think I understand exactly what the hidden powers of the falling devil actually is, and we'll get to that in a moment. However, I think we all can agree that this chapter was just downright terrifying when you read it, and if you didn't think so, you obviously have a bigger set of balls to me, and you probably are not the person screaming during scary movies like I am, because there were a few times where I was reading this where the horror element really had me kind of squirming for a bit at times, which might have been because I'm a huge animal lover and I had a feeling that this cat was going to die. But knowing Mitaka has a cat, or rather had a cat, it makes her being inside of Denji's apartment make a lot more sense now, because Denji had Meowie. That's another thing to kind of draw a line with Mitaka and Denji. Seriously though, the falling devil and some of the horror vibes that we got in this chapter, dealing with it, it really gave me vibes of the darkness devil. While this is only the opening chapter for us to deal with the falling devil, we have a long way to go before we can compare it to the darkness devil. I acknowledge that. However, I do think we're off to a really good start here, and I think Fujimoto might be setting Mitaka up for some extended trauma after the fact, just like how Denji and Power were shaken up after the battle with the darkness devil. Now, the other thing about the primal devil being the falling devil is interesting to me because we've seen the cliche from movies before where people have dreams about opening up a door and falling that endless fall. Case in point, like say Alice in Wonderland, where she falls down into Wonderland. Even in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, in that movie, with all the insane stuff that's going on, we've got Doctor Strange and America Chavez. They're screaming because they're falling through the sky through the various multiverses. When old people climb stairs, they hope that they don't fall. When you walk on the street and you reach a curb, you look down to see where your footing is because you don't want to fall. I can see why Fujimoto did this. It's not the sexiest choice for a primordial devil, but it makes a lot of sense. For instance, when babies are learning to walk, it's the fear of falling that holds them back at times, and it's why parents are holding the hands of their children in order to keep them from falling when they're learning how to walk. Another thing of interest here is that it appears as if the falling devil's powers appear to trigger once she claps her hand, and that's when she starts to take advantage of the trauma inside the human heart, which basically means every shonen main protagonist who has a tragic backstory is in danger of being one shot by this devil, because based off of what we've seen, the more stuff you've been through in terms of trauma, the greater the impact that this power is going to have on you, which is absolutely brilliant here. This explains why Yoru was telling Mitaka to not be afraid, and the other reason why Yoru says she can't win this fight and she ran away. It wasn't because she's like, oh, I'm dealing with a primal devil. I think that's part of it. It was also because she shares a brain with Mitaka, and she knows that this devil is literally a nightmare for Mitaka as she falls under her effects. Now, it's worth noting here that if this is like the darkness devil, there are going to be more powers, and I think the hints are right in our faces when we look at the outfit of the falling devil itself. It's wearing a chef's hat, and it was talking like a chef. So use some personal experience, right? When you go to these fancy restaurants where you sit down to order, and you have one waiter who's just there to bring you your water and your wine, and then you have another waiter who brings out the food. At restaurants like this, you're probably going to be getting a 4 or 7 course meal. I think this might be the case here. This is literally just the appetizer for her powers, which is really scary to think about the damage this can cause if this is written correctly, which I have absolute all faith Fujimoto is going to pull this off, because it makes you wonder what else is this devil hiding up his sleeves if this is only the appetizer. Now, even scarier is that the falling devil says that she's here on the request of all the residents of hell, which means there's something else coming with this Nostradamus prophecy that Fujimoto has left out, and for once in the manga, he's not using dramatic irony where we as the readers know something the main characters don't. Whatever Fujimoto's hiding for this, there's going to be a major zinger. This chapter really has me wondering how Mitaka is going to get out of this one, and the worst part is that we have to wait 2 weeks, because if we're waiting 2 weeks, that means that Fujimoto's clearly going to be cooking something up, pun intended, because of the falling devil. However, my question to you guys, do you agree that the falling devil might have multiple powers like a chef that has a 4 or 7 course meal? While you think that over, click here to check out these other Chainsaw Man videos you see on the screen right now.